Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and good night, wherever you may be. Stamp collecting is fun, and today I'm looking at early Canada. Um, now, I put early Canada because I was basically classing these as early, and they're not, but they are earlier than those, for example. Anyway, we'll get to have a little look what I've got in the envelope of Canada. And how did I get this envelope? Full of, well, not quite full, but it's pretty full of Canadian stamps. Well, as I was going through my arts and crafts box, as you know, I pull out certain countries and Canada, Australia, Germany, um, France, and other countries. You know, there were a lot of stamps of those countries, as you'd expect, really. So I dedicated an envelope for each. And every time I came across a Canadian stamp, I would add it to the envelope. So I thought, now maybe, as we did Germany yesterday, I thought we'd do Canada today. So we'll pull out a few. Not, oh, have they all fallen out? Not quite. I'll pull them all out. But what I thought I'd do, look at that look. What I thought I'd do is separate the particularly British. In other words, say for example, a King George the Fifth. I would put that in one side of the pile. The British type stamps on one side, and more sort of Canadian, if you will, on the other, and see how we get along. Now, this is Royal Canadian Mounted Police. A very nice stamp. And you see mounties out on horseback. And yeah, and also there's a helicopter there. Yeah, so that would be a sort of a moderner. And this foursome here would be more, the traditional, what we're sort of used to before they got, before they became more sort of, they got their heads on it and decided to be more creative, let's put it like that. That would be a creative stamp, I think. I don't know what's going on there. I'd call this less creative. Vincent Massey, 1967. Governor General. So, they're celebrating Governor Generals there. Whereas here, it's more to do with, the history of the landscape, the people, the more modern age. So, with early Canada, we're looking at the modern age. So I've fallen down pretty badly, haven't I? Anyway, we'll separate them a little bit. Lots of nice Queen Elizabeths there. And here is her father, George the Sixth. Oh, this is from 1951. Here we've got Vincent Massey again. There's a bit of a fold there. Bit of gum on it. No, it goes there, Peter. That's right. Laurier of Canada. That looks old, doesn't it? A pair of Her Majesty the Queen. So really not that many, possibly, creative ones. Though I would say this is one, even though it's of an old train. It's a modern stamp. As is this. So 1984, this is where we're getting more of things Canadian rather than governmental, of the government. When they started to introduce plants and rocks and things, sand and hills and rings, then, I would class these as modern. Definitive here. We'll say that is a very common stamp. Bit of historical weaving. And you can see the difference between, for example, that and this. King George the V. King George the Fifth. Canada maple. significant. Something there. It's lit up. So its own stamp. They've basically taken the country, and it's not associated with government of the empire, so to speak. It's a nice bird. Maple Leaf Canada. Her Majesty the Queen. What would this be? United Nations anniversary. I'd put that there. Though it probably doesn't quite belong there. This is the Canadian Press. So we're looking at ownership. So yeah, we'll put that there actually. The press is a good example. So they've got their own press and their own, they're standing up for their country. It's more about them. They're not represented per se with, in Britain, we were having stamps with the King's and Queen's heads on them. We still do, and maybe they still do in Canada. But there was a line that was drawn where we got away from that for every single stamp, and we introduced other stuff. Christmas stamps. That's a nice Christmas stamp here. We have a nice pair. What's that? Teddy Fox runner. So a sporting celebration of Teddy Fox. The Christmas Noel. Joseph, Mary, the Lord Jesus, sheep. Nice pair. Starfish. We're also getting bilingualism. French and English has equal status in Canada. Post and postage. Another of those flag stamps. Wow. Those mountains, they look a bit cold. Don't know what that is. It possibly goes Haraway. Oh, it's an elk. Another maple leaf. Another bird, 15 cents. And then Her Majesty the Queen. Another Elizabeth. If anything was early Canada, possibly this might just about qualify. Edward the Seventh for 2 cents. 2 cents, that is. So that's pretty old. And here we have another of his, which is, the council obliterates a lot of it. But I do love it. Art in Canada. Canada has some great artists, of which MacDonald was one. The canoe, so indigenous people in their kayaks, which is now, of course, kayaking is a sport. Airmail, I would class that as. Simply because it's got a plane on it. Whether it is or not, I don't know, but it's got 60 on it, which tends to be more than, the 5, because it's going overseas. So here we have a more modern Canada stamp with the Queen, but I'll keep that there. So maybe it's not about modernity as such, but it's about officialdom and government officials rather than other aspects of Canadian life. The Olympic Games, Montreal 1976. Fantastic games they were. Lakes, of which they have got many. Barrels, which are well barrels, which I think they have many of as well. And queens. Don't have too many of them. Christmas Noel. So celebrating the culture in that way. That's a nice orchestra one. Lady Slipper Plant. Sabot de la Vierge. I'm shaking because that's better. I was sitting a bit awkwardly. A $1 stamp. So they're suddenly going up in price from 2 cents to $1. And as we know, there are 100 cents in a dollar. So that's quite a jump. Canada, are we back to Christmas again? Yes, we are. The shepherds and Christmas Noel. A fern leaf of some description. That mountain range again. Here we have George VI. Also the Queen is here. And there. And more mountains. They love their mountains there. And their glaciers. And their snow. They love that. And there's a lot of it. Now we saw that bucket earlier. Here we've got some sort, oh, it's upside down. This is half $1, almost. So it's a cradle of some description. Not sure what that would be celebrating. Possibly the Jesus Noel. It's Christmas Noel, I should say, because I got confused with that. So what I'm looking at is Christmas Noel. Jesus Ahaton here. So we're looking at native Canadians here celebrating also Christmas. So it's, so we've got English, we've got French, and we've got the native language, which is quite nice, isn't it? So they've got the scene. You know, baby Jesus here is surrounded by native, native shepherds or a native family, which is nice. Canada, the group des Sept. So the group of 7, which looks like it could be trees. Here we have some buildings, church maybe, cathedral, Her Majesty the Queen. Edward again, and a 2 center. This is his son George, which is also 2 cents. Canada flag. How are we doing for time? 12 minutes. So here we've got the Queen. So there's a crossover happening here. So we have the Queen, but also with a little picture. Could be airmail because there's a plane in there. So it could be like an airport or maybe modernisation with the rail track. I'm not sure, but it just shows that we're suddenly getting the crossover from simply having the King and Queen's head. There's another of these. To having other aspects of Canadian life. Here we've got King. Again, this is the same. No, not quite. So there's a curve here, and there's a straight line across there. So they're slightly different. It's the same picture. George V, probably just after the war. By that I mean the First War, where Canada lost a lot of men. Fishing. Not sure I'm going to get through all of these, so I'll try and pull out some interesting ones. Here's another of, I think that, I don't know if that's George or Edward VII. I don't know. The Queen. Sometimes a simple line can confuse matters. That, for example, is definitely George V. So possibly the one was also. Here we have some sort of San Juan Red Bay, Barley Red boat. Maybe it sank. Canada flag 39. Canada Queen. Canada plant. We've got half a minute. So we'll just grab a few more. Education. Red Cross maybe. That what we started with. So that's probably about it. We'll finish. I think we should finish with a wartime stamp. Here we have George VI in uniform, So that tells you that's wartime. We'll leave it at that for now. Just out of interest, that popped out. That is not Canadian. That is French. That doesn't belong there. So we'll leave it at that for now. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed this look at some of my Canadian stamps. Not all, but some. And I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye for now. Goodbye.